Hey, I want to say good morning to everybody who's watching our video, and also a special greeting to you, Dr. Pat Lin. So, Pat, for the benefit of the people who are watching our video, tell them who you are and where you practice, please.
I'm Dr. Patrick Lin, and I practice in Cedar Park, Texas, right outside Austin.
And one of the reasons that we are talking, this is a case study. You did something that a lot of young chiropractors just graduating out of chiropractic college want to do, and that is that you and your wife, Dani, you guys opened up your practice without associating and were successful from the get-go. I'd like to talk a little bit about how that whole process went. First of all, why did you decide to not associate?
Well, obviously, being married with my wife and I, it'll be hard to find two associateships
Good
with
point.
one location. So that's pretty much the main reason why we wanted to open our own practice. And I always wanted to be my own boss, and I knew that as soon as I graduated, I wanted to open my own practice.
Now, I know that we met when I came to speak at Palmer. You were a student, and then you had associations with other five-star management clients. One who was a mentor of yours back then, Dr. Stan Dombrowski. So, can you tell us a little bit about your relationship with Dr. Stan and how he might have played a part in you opening up your own practice?
Yeah, when we first met, I was still in school, and I didn't know anything about management groups. And going to visit different NUCA practices like Dr. Kleinfelter and Dr. Stombrowski. They had the five-star system in place, and I just really fell in love with the system. And from then, I knew I wanted to be with five-star, so I didn't want to, flunk at opening a practice.
Yeah, flunking at opening up a practice is an expensive flunk.
And
So,
interning with Dr. Stan, he had the five-star system in place, loved his practice, loved the way he ran it, loved the system, and I knew I wanted to be with that five-star system.
great. Now, you chose Cedar Park, Texas. Neither you nor Dani are from Texas. Why did you choose that town?
Well, we did a whole bunch of research on, growing cities and growing population, and Cedar Park was a up and coming suburb of Austin, because Austin is just growing like crazy, and
Right.
we felt like that was a perfect place to start our practice. Low overhead, back then, not now. It's grown so much,
Hmm.
um, and just the growing population, and we love the
Yeah.
obviously the temperature and the weather down here. So.
So now let's talk about getting started. What process did you go through to find a location and get ready to be in your practice? And tell us how that worked for you.
Well, we pretty much listened to what you told us to do.
Uh huh.
Um,
So,
so, looking for the location, we just wanted to be somewhere in a nice area, in a suburb with nice houses, nice street, nice trees.
hmm.
Um, the office space, we wanted to be something with low overhead. So we found a really good lease, and you told us to, bargain for signage, uh, free lease for the first, what, I think 4 or 5 months, I believe it was,
Hmm.
and how to negotiate a lease, and you just brought us through the whole process from the start. So that was fantastic.
Now, I know that you got your lease signed, and then there's this time between actually getting the lease signed and actually opening. How much time was that, and what did you do in the interim between signing a lease and actually opening for practice?
So we signed a lease and we opened our practice 2 months afterwards.
Okay.
So 2 months, we did the 2 month ramp. I mean, we just screened our butt off from the start. Every day we're out screening with a SAM unit, carrying a SAM unit around from Walgreens to gyms, the market, health fairs. I mean, we were just out every day. My wife and I would, divide and conquer and do 2 events at one time sometimes.
Huh.
Um, and we did the neighborhood survey like you told us to do.
Right.
We did over 450 houses, I believe, around
Wow.
our practice. And obviously during that 2 months, we were still kind of working on our office and building out how our build out wanted to be while we were screening. So.
I think that's so smart. I had seen that so many different times. Somebody'd get in touch with me. They'd just open up their practice. They'd been in some type of 2 month or 3 month build out, and they hadn't done anything to put new patients in the practice. So you guys were pretty much busy for 60 days straight. And if I remember things correctly, it was nice and warm when you were doing that too, right?
Oh yeah, it was record-breaking 113-degree weather. I was in a shirt and tie, and we were going from door to door doing chiropractic surveys. And by the time we opened our door, we had a whole bunch of new patients on our books.
So now, whole bunch. Can you put some quantity to that? Do you know how much, or roughly how many new patients you already
I
have
know,
on your books?
I know exactly. So the first week we opened, we had 18 new patients.
Great,
Oh,
absolutely great. Now, you did something in your first month that is super, super rare for any practice to do in the first month, and that is that you were in profit. So, explain to people how you kept your overhead low and how you got into profit your very, very first month.
well, we didn't really buy any expensive equipment. We bought our X-ray machine when we were in chiropractic school. I had
Hmm.
my Nuka table given to me by Dr. Stan Dabrowski.
Huh?
My wife's father built us tables and uh, view boxes and X-rays, and I mean, we just did everything cheap. Um, and then when we opened our practice, we were already profitable because we didn't spend much money. I mean, our lease was only $1,400, and we our cash practice, and we collected over 10,000 the first week, I believe. I mean, first month. Sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you guys, and you also started out cash. Now
Yes.
there are so many people that wish they were a cash practice today, and you've known no other type of practice. Can you just tell me a little bit of your thinking about why you chose to be a cash practice and how that has been for you in building your practice?
Well, from the start, I knew I wanted to do cash because I've heard of these horrible stories about insurance companies and the rates that they were paying. So, and being a nuka doctor, most nuka doctors are cash.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to do from the start. And it was a little harder in the beginning because of all the insurance, but I mean, in the long term, I don't regret it at all. And I've seen other, insurance practices, and I knew that was something that I didn't want to do in
So
my business.
I think that's a great decision. And by the way, that's a very, very good culture. A lot of NUCA doctors that I know are cash practices, and they absolutely love it. In fact, somebody that I know just recently transitioned in their practice from insurance to cash and are thrilled that they did it and wish they would have done it a long time ago. It takes some art in order to do that, but you opened up that way. Now, so here we are, first month, you're in profit. Tell me, what type of goals did you have back in that day for what you wanted to do, and what have you done to reach your goals, and how many goals have you hit and reached and surpassed?
Wow. Our goals. I mean, we broke records every month from that first year. I mean, every month we had a better month. Every week we had a better week, and we're still having record months and record weeks. My goal was to have two associates, and we've had one right now this year. My goal is to see 200 patients a week, to collect 1 million. We're getting close to that. So those are some of our big goals we set from the start.
Well, I remember this. In fact, still, when I see your name on my call sheet, on my call calendar, I know we're going to have fun, and I'm almost certainly going to see some records. And so, week after week, month after month, new patient record, regular visit record, production record, collection records, all kinds of different records. Now, you did have an associate some time ago who wasn't the right fit for your practice. A wonderful person, but just not the right fit. How did you know it wasn't the right fit? And how did you make your switch or your change?
Well, I didn't know it was the right fit. You told me it wasn't the right fit. I learned it the hard way, right?
Okay.
She was great. She was a hard worker, a great person, but just didn't have the it factor, I guess, as a doctor. But we learned from that, and when we hired our second associate, we hired slower, make sure we had the right person, and we just took our time. I think we hired a little bit too fast, and that was our mistake for the first one.
Now, tell people a little bit about how you work with your associate and this particular associate experience that you're having. It's a little different, am I correct?
Yes, a lot different, yes.
A lot different. And so, we've talked a lot, and I know that we've done training on developing associates. So maybe you might speak just a little bit about your associate development process. What are you doing in order to help your associate grow and be successful?
Well, the first thing I did was put him in the AEP, the Associate Development Program with you.
Okay.
I know he would be off to a good start after that program. And just holding him accountable. So we have weekly meetings. We're always looking at his stats, making sure he's doing events and making sure he's converting new patients. I think just having the weekly meetings is really important, making sure that he's on the right pace and he keeps growing and his stats looking really good. So.
Now, some doctors will go through a real good hiring process and hire a real good person, but not know what to do with them after that point. So what are some of the things? He's been with you now how long?
4 months.
And give me a snapshot of what a typical training might look like, maybe one that you've done in the last few weeks.
So we have a associate manual. So we'll go through how many x-rays he's taken. We'll go through how many exams he's done. We'll go through how many scans he's done, how many adjustments he's done. So he keeps track of every single patient that he's done all those things to. We'll check on his scripts, his pre-consultation script, his post-consultation script. We'll do a training on exams and then timing from the new patients to the RF, making sure his timing's on point, and then also as well as the adjusting techniques, philosophy. We'll go through training with philosophy, and then obviously going through the NUCA training and X-ray training, and we also do screening scripts and screening training.
Now, screening script and screening training, your associate does external marketing. And so how did you explain that initially when he was interviewing with you, and how has that worked out since you guys have been working together over these last 4 months?
Well, I explained to him how I got successful was through a lot of screenings every day and a lot of hard work. And I asked him, if you want to be successful, this is what you got to do.
Right.
And he was totally on board with that. And he's been screening every week ever since. He's doing 2 to 3 events a week.
3 events a week. So I think that that's an absolutely wonderful goal. So, how busy is his busiest week of his own patients? I'm sure he's taking care of your patients when you
Yep.
guys leave the clinic, but how busy is his busiest week?
So he's been with us for, at the end of 3 months, he saw 37 of his own patients that week.
That's great. That's great. So, talk to me a little bit about clinic volume. I know that. Oh, and I touched on this very briefly about you and Dani, and your wife also a chiropractor, and that's one of the reasons why you guys opened up in Cedar Park, is because getting two associateships or finding one associateship where hire two chiropractors rare. Um, and I know that you have a beautiful little baby girl named Aubrey, and so and Dani is her major caregiver. How many hours does she work in the practice?
So she works 14 hours, so
Okay,
2 days, Monday and Thursday, and I'm in the office 4 days
okay, and your associate is in there how many days?
every day.
Okay, okay, great. And so, what's your busiest ever week in practice? Total new plus regular visits all together.
Our busiest week we broke last month was 278.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah,
And what's your best collection month in the practice?
close to 60,000.
That's great. And if you take 60 out 12 months, that's about $750,000. That's great practice. And you've been in practice in this location for how long now?
Just 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah,
So
just over 5 years.
okay, so let's talk about some of your goals. Now I know that your practice is the facility is a little small. How are you? How many square feet do you have, and how do you put 270 plus patient visits a week in your facility?
Well, we're in 850 square feet, and my
Wow.
goal was to hit 300. And once we hit 300, I think that's the time to expand to a bigger office. So we're getting close, and we're looking at moving into a bigger office within the next year.
So with all the things that you're learning, let's take a look 3 to 5 years down the road. What would you think your training and your experience to date would empower you to do, and what are some of the projects that you're looking at that are exciting you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was how do you fit, you know, almost 300 visits in a 850 square feet space, right? Is the system. I mean, having a good system. I mean, we saw 278 that week, and we felt like we could have seen 350,
Wow.
easily. I think just going through the training, make sure the staff is well trained, and having your systems in place and make sure that systems are followed is going to give the best result of any practice. And then 3 to 5 years, I hope to have my current associate, 150 visits, and then having a second associate to hit that point at 150 visits too.
I think that's great. And my experience is that when an associate finds someplace where he or she is being developed and the doctor cares about you and is seeing you get into bonus as soon as possible, they tend to like that. And whether they plan to leave at some point in time or want to stay with you for a long time, the associate experience is a real positive one. Do you think, and I know it's kind of hard to tell, but do you think your associate might be with you for an extended period of time, or has he or she, or he in this particular case, expressed a desire to do his own thing?
I think he's going to stay with us for a long time. He loves it here. He expressed that he had a bad experience his first associateship, and he's just having fun here, and he loves it here. So I don't think he's wanting to leave anytime soon.
You know, that's a real hallmark of what I call win-win associate development and what we teach at Five Star. And that when you're doing real things that mean for real success, that real people are having real fun, and you tend to want to stick with that. So here's what I would ask you to speak to now. So somebody's going to watch this. who's just about ready to graduate, or they've just graduated and they were debating on whether to associate or not, and they've decided, I'm not going to associate. I'm going to just go out and I'm going to start my own practice. What would you tell them to do based on your success?
Hire you. I would say join Five Star and listen to Noel and do whatever he says. And I would say just screen your butt off and work hard and just really start with a low overhead and just gain tons of traction from just screening. And it's all about new patients. Without new patients, yes, there's nothing.
Right. And if you get tons and tons and tons of new patients, you'll be successful. And if
Yeah,
you can set an atlas within a gnat's eyelash of perfect, but you can't get the new patients, you're going to struggle. So,
exactly.
speak to me about your marketing right now. I know your associate is doing marketing, but do Pat and Danny also do marketing? How do you guys handle your new patient production now?
Well, I haven't screened in the last maybe 3 months, but once in a while I'll go out and screen still. My wife no longer does. She just fills in once in a while, but we have a COA that does all of our marketing for us now, and obviously the New Patient Academy that we did. So she's doing, I would say, at least 3 events a week with the associate, with by herself, with massage therapists. So she's bringing us new patients that way as well.
That's great. That's great. So I'm impressed with your success. I remember when I met you as a student, it was enjoyable for me and interesting for me to listen to what you wanted to do. And then when we started working together, and I predict that you're going to be developing associates for a long, long time because you started so young. And you guys are going to be very, very successful. And this is going to be $1 million practice in a very, very short period of time. So, Dr. Patrick Lin, I wish you all the best. And thanks so much for giving me this interview.
Thanks, Noel. You're the best.